What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the YouTube channel and another video in the cover model body series where I'm going to be teaching you exactly what you need to know to build a cover model body without the restriction and how you can sustain it all year round. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the reality of getting a six-pack, uncovering a lot of the BS in the industry, what you need to do to get a six-pack, what's required to get a six-pack, if it's even worth having a six-pack, and a lot of the considerations that you need to make. Now, I've had abs and a six-pack for probably as long as I can remember, probably since I've been a teenager. Now, I've always been a relatively skinny person. So even when I was growing up and playing a lot of sports, I was lean, I had abs, just unintentionally because I was just naturally quite ectomorphic and quite skinny. So even when I was playing a lot of my sports when I was younger, like swimming and athletics, rugby, football, I always had abs. So I guess I've been fortunate in that department. However, having now had them since I can remember, and even as I started to grow up, I've also helped a lot of people achieve this. So I feel like I've got a good level of understanding in terms of what's required. We've helped hundreds of guys get a six-pack. Probably see a lot of the results maybe dotted around the screen now of people that we've helped successfully at FitLab. And even women as well, we've helped get to the level of low body fat and seeing their abs, which I wouldn't always recommend, but that's a topic for another day. So I feel like I've got a good level of understanding and perspective to be able to give you guys on this. Now, first of all, let's talk about a lot of the rubbish and a lot of the BS that you need to stay away from in terms of what's required to get a six-pack. Now, it's often made out that it's quite easy and a lot of quick fixes in terms of how that you can get lean, because let's be honest, it's what most guys want, okay? There's two types of people in this life. There's the guys that want a six-pack and there's the liars. So we have to really think about that's a desirable result that a lot of people want, and that's why there's a lot of marketing and pushed out there in terms of how you can get that quickly, because people want that because it's what a lot of people desire to have. Now, the stuff that's worth having, the stuff that is of high value, is never going to be easy to get. That's what makes it valuable. That's what makes having a six-pack and what makes being in good shape valuable, because it's not easy to attain. So when you do have that, you are of value because you're different, and it shows that you've worked hard and you've been dedicated to the goal to get to that position, because it's not easy. So when you see a lot of these tricks and these tips and these like marketing techniques on Instagram, you need to be really aware because it's not easy. So if you are seeing Toner Bell, which promises you a six-pack in 6 weeks, you need to run to the hills, because if it was that easy and everyone would have a six-pack, if you could literally put a belt on your stomach and it could just burn through body fat and give you a six-pack, that is not how things work. You know, even stuff like the weight loss surgery, like obviously in some cases could it be successful? However, I don't agree with any of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff comes down to lifestyle, habits, choices, and understanding. And by taking a quick fix like that, you don't have the understanding and the knowledge to be able to sustain a six-pack all year round, or sustain low body fat, or even sustain good health. So that's something to avoid as well. But a lot of supplements you will see that will promise you a six-pack, fat burning supplements that do X, Y, and Z. Most supplements are complete BS, and trust me, there are not fat burning supplements. There are supplements that can help with losing body fat in a more less direct way, but they are not literally supplements that will burn through body fat. That is going to come down to your nutrition and just in general your lifestyle. Now, what you also get in terms of a lot of BS is the kind of workouts that you will see on Instagram. A lot of these influencer ab workouts and 10-minute abs and stuff like that you see potentially on YouTube of your favorite influencers telling you that if you just do this for 10 minutes per day, like you're going to get a six-pack. This is also a load of BS. Now, I'm going to run you through a little bit more in terms of what you need to get a six-pack later on in this video, but put it this way, by doing 10 minutes of ab workouts, you know, at the end of your workout or in the morning, that is not going to get you anywhere near low body fat at all. And often you're actually doing more harm than good by wasting your time, firstly, doing these workouts. And secondly, if you are smashing loads of sit-ups, which a lot of guys do, I actually speak to guys all the time that tell me, oh, I've started doing, you know, X amount of sit-ups before I go to bed. You're probably going to put your back out a lot quicker than you are to get a six-pack, because it's just constant strain all the time through your back as you start to do these sit-ups and repetitive of that all day long. And trust me, we don't want to be getting lower back pain. So you really need to avoid these things. So that's kind of the stuff to stay away from, and a lot of the BS, a lot of the influencer stuff, a lot of the marketing techniques that you will probably see pushed your way in terms of this is how you get a six pack, because trust me, that's not how you get a six pack. So what is the truth of how to get low body fat? It's this very, very, very simple thing, and it's called a calorie deficit. Now, I don't mean to try and be like every other PT or fitness coach that you see, but it is very simple in terms of you just need to be in a calorie deficit for long enough to keep losing body fat. Now, a calorie deficit is very simply us burning more calories than the amount of calories that we consume, creates an energy deficit, which forces our body to either grab body fat or muscle to make up that lack of energy, to make up the deficit, which obviously then leads to us getting leaner and getting more toned and losing body fat. Hopefully not muscle, which is why you need to be doing your resistance training. So really, to be in a calorie deficit, like, it doesn't mean that you need to be doing lots of ab work. You don't need to do that. You just simply need to be making sure your nutrition is seeing you in a calorie deficit. So that age-old saying of abs are made in the kitchen, I wouldn't agree with that entirely. However, a lot of that is actually true, because what you eat on a daily basis is going to dictate whether you lose body fat or not. So you have to make sure that you are consuming less calories than what you're burning every single day. And it is just the duration of time that you need to be in a calorie deficit. That is the only difference between getting to low body fat and getting to a six pack. A lot of guys give up at like 8 weeks or even 4 weeks or a week. They don't spend enough time in a calorie deficit to get a six pack. And if they just kept doing what they were doing before, they would eventually get a six pack. It's just time, it's duration. It becomes harder. Obviously, the more you diet and the more weight you lose, it does become more difficult to get to that level, but it's just time. If you spent 12 weeks solidly in a calorie deficit, you're probably going to lose a lot of body fat and get close to that six pack. 16 weeks in a calorie deficit, probably going to get close to that six pack. That's all you need to be focused on, getting in there for enough time. And this is why your dietary approach is so important, because if it's unsustainable and you don't enjoy it and it's just making you miserable, you're not going to stick to it for long enough to be able to get a six pack. It's just not going to happen. So you need to find a dietary approach which you can adhere to for that time frame for you to be able to stay in it long enough to be able to get to that position. You need to think about your body fat like a swimming pool. And I love this analogy in terms of when you're draining out a swimming pool, there's a shallow end and there's a deep end, and you can't decide where the water leaves first. It's always going to leave at the shallow end, right? This is the first body fat that you lose, okay? So this is the less stubborn areas of body fat that just fall off you really quickly, okay? And this is going to be different for every single person, but there'll be certain areas of body fat that just go pretty quickly, right? However, as you keep losing more and more water from that pool, you're going to start to drain the deep end. The deep end is your stubborn body fat. So this is going to be areas like your stomach. This might be areas on your lower half if you're a female, because these are the more stubborn areas. If you keep draining the swimming pool over time, being in your calorie deficit, you're going to get to that low body fat. And that is literally what's required to get a six pack. It is just being in a calorie deficit for long enough, draining that swimming pool for long enough to ensure that you eventually get to that level of low body fat. So would I actually recommend that you do any ab work at all? You could get a six pack with doing zero ab work. I've gone through cuts before where I've hardly ever trained abs, more so because I've just kind of forgotten. It's just not been something that I really enjoyed, and I've still had a great set of abs. However, I would recommend there are certain exercises that you should do, or I would consider doing, to improve the way that your six pack and your abs do look. And it's probably not the ones that you think. It's not doing loads of crunches or loads of sit-ups. These are not really that effective. You want to be focusing more on weight-bearing exercises that are difficult. Now, your abs are a muscle just like any other muscle group, so it requires reasonably heavy weight with a moderate rep range. So you need to be thinking about, how can we make this difficult, this exercise more difficult? If you're just doing loads of crunches, I don't know about you, but I could probably do 100 crunches and probably still get out another 50. So it's just not really going to give me that challenge that my body needs. So you should be trying to do exercises like hanging leg raises, weighted crunches, even like sticking a dumbbell in between your feet and doing knee raises and like the captain's chair. This is a really good exercise that supports your back as well. And you could do decline crunches and hold a medicine ball. These are exercises that are more difficult, so you're going to fail at maybe around that 8 to 12 rep range, which is better for building muscles. So it's going to build more thickness. So that's what I'd recommend from an ab training perspective. I'd be doing more of that instead of doing loads and loads of crunches and loads of high volume of ab work. So that's essentially how we get the six pack. Now, in terms of maintaining the six pack, this is going to be different for everyone. And the way that you need to think about this is, first, do you really want the six pack? And is it important for you to maintain the six pack or maintain really low body fat? You've got to think about this. You're probably going to be spending, a lot of you, depending on obviously your job, of course, probably going to be spending like less than 1% of the year without your top on in public, realistically, obviously it's going to depend on where you live, what you do, all that kind of stuff. But realistically, you're going to go on holiday for a select amount of time per year, probably going to be topless for the majority of that holiday. You know, it's not really going to be that long. And a lot of the time you're going to be fully dressed in clothes anyway. So as long as you look good in clothes and you're healthy, is the six pack worth it? For some of you, it might be. For some of you, it might not be. You've got to decide what you think is realistic for you. If you have a huge social life and you love going out and you love eating out all the time, you travel all the time, and you don't really want to have to worry about that restriction in some areas, then probably say the six pack might not be worth maintaining. If you just want to be at that high standard, you want to be in that top 1% guy, you want to have an amazing physique, then obviously you would want to sustain the six pack. You might lie anywhere on that spectrum in terms of being really, really serious and wanting to look incredible all the time and maybe not being so worried about it. As long as you're healthy and your health markers are in check, you don't necessarily need the six pack because it's not going to make you that much more happier. It's just a kind of, I suppose, a sign of dedication and commitment and all that kind of stuff. So you need to decide on that spectrum where you lie. And that's going to dictate what level of body fat you're probably going to spend the year at. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. We've got some guys that don't necessarily want to have the six pack all the time. Maybe they've got there and we've got them to that low body fat. And then we've kind of worked their calories up to the point where they don't feel they need to have the six pack. Some of our guys want to be shredded all the time. They want to always, turn heads all the time and be in that position. And that's like myself. I feel like as a coach, it's more important to me to look lean and look good because, I want to practice what I preach and set an example. But I'm in that spectrum of maybe living a slightly more compromised life because I want to look good and be lean all the time and have a six pack. Always want to be Instagram ready. For me, it's a little bit different because it's my job, it's my livelihood, it's my lifestyle. So I'm happy to drink very minimal amounts of alcohol. I'm happy to only have, one meal out per week or one off-hand meal. Happy to pretty much follow a meal plan for 90% of the time because it just works for me, it's easier. So these are compromises that I make, and you might not want to make those compromises. It's not to say you can't look good without having the shredded abs and the six pack. And it's also going to depend on your genetics too, as to, again, like what's realistic for you to be able to sustain. Some people who don't carry as much body fat around their stomach, well, they can sustain a six pack maybe at a higher body fat level. Whereas if you carry a lot of your body fat around your stomach, you might find it harder to sustain a six pack because, well, you just carry more body fat around your stomach, okay? That's just the way that you've been made up. So that's also something that you need to consider as well. So all in all, guys, I hope this has given you some understanding, shed a little bit of light on that topic of how you actually get a six pack to start off with and, cutting through all the industry BS. Secondly, how you maintain a six pack, which is obviously going to come down to your habits, your lifestyle, your actions on a daily basis. And thirdly, whether you actually want to sustain a six pack and the considerations that you need to make and be aware of to sustain that low body fat. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope you find it educational. As always, make sure you like the video if you have. Please subscribe to the channel for future videos. Hit the bell notification so you're notified every time I post. And I'm going to catch you in the next video.